Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Executive Encore, where we explore strategies to empower women through their 40s to 60s and beyond as they remaster their lives and their work to transform their lives, careers, and their communities. I'm Patricia Muir, I'm your host, and I'm excited to introduce you to a truly inspiring guest today. Joining us today is Jennifer Yeh, co-founder and COO of Shoot, and that is Shoot with a double O and a double T, a visionary startup that's revolutionizing professional photography in over 60 North American cities. And I have already spoken to Jennifer about, hey, how about we expand into Canada, international, and I think Jennifer's all for that.
Yes, absolutely.
Jennifer is no stranger to change. She transitioned from being a classical pianist to an economist. That's an interesting story. To a single mom, and now a dynamic startup leader. Under Jennifer's leadership, Shoot scaled from 800,000 to over 10 million in annual revenue, all while operating a lean and efficient team. My favorite as well, lean and efficient.
Yes.
Keep the money in the business. But Jennifer's story isn't just about numbers. I love that too. It's not just about the dollars. It's about resilience, healing, and redefining success for herself. So today, Jennifer and I will discuss key topics, including how personal pivots can translate into professional strengths, while healing is a critical accelerator for leadership. I love that. Healing as an accelerator for leadership. And how curiosity combined with a touch of laziness, and we're going through a heat wave right now, so lazy sounds good to me, can fuel innovation and growth. Growth.
And well,
I live near Guelph. That's why I said innovation in Guelph.
yes.
Jennifer, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a thrill to have you here.
Yeah.
Well, Jennifer, you have such a fascinating career trajectory from classical pianist to economist to co-founding a highly successful startup. Can you tell us about a personal pivot you experienced and how it shaped your professional growth?
Yes. So I think the biggest pivot I made was actually right at the cusp of my end of my high school career. I was going back, a while ago, but I will say, one of the things that I always try to keep in mind and always try to continue to be is to be adaptable. So as you mentioned earlier, I started out being a classical pianist, kind of went the whole route of really going into specialized schooling and programs to go into music school. And at the end of my high school career, I remember sitting down and thinking, there's so much more to life. I kind of want to explore what that is. And I think just sitting down there and having more of the mind of curiosity and wondering if I have skills beyond just music was enough for me to be like, you know what, I think I do want to pivot. Because if I had to be realistic with myself, I was like, I don't know if I'm really cut out to be in the performance area of music because I suffer with so much anxiety, right? And I think I had to make a decision if I could keep on doing this, but I don't know what my quality of life would be like if I had to be very honest with myself. So I decided to try something new, which is always very scary, going from something I knew really well to something with, academics that I really, didn't spend a lot of time focusing. I was like, well, let me just give that a try and see what happens, right? So that trajectory obviously put me on a completely different path, and that which led to today where I'm at. But without it, I would not be here. So, and talking to you, most likely.
And being an entrepreneur and a startup and scaling like you did, that's no small feat. So there must have been some anxiety along the way that that initial pivot that you did is sort of prepared you for that in business as well.
Yes.
In business, you always have to be looking at the pivot, right? Especially in today's economy. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That is so powerful. What advice would you offer to other women who are struggling to adapt to their own life challenges, especially in a professional context? Like many of the women that are in our audience are at a point in their career, and it doesn't matter what age they are, but they've come to a point in their career where it's a challenge in a way, and they see that they're going to need to pivot to remain relevant, visible, okay? And we also have some women who are actually leaving the corporate world. So that's a huge change for them. And
Mhm.
so, what advice would you offer when they're struggling through those challenges?
Yeah. So I think one thing that's helped me a lot is that when I see these challenges and if I start feeling like anxiety, I let myself feel anxious for 5 to 10 minutes, sometimes a
Mhm.
little bit more. But
Mm,
then I try to reframe it as in like, hey, if we look at it, as a whole, we only have this one life on earth, right? I
mm,
have certain goals I want to achieve, but and this is a little cliche, but it's really not about the end destination. It's really about that journey.
yeah.
So a lot of times when I see these challenges, instead of being like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous, I'm going to fail, like I don't know what's going to happen, I reframe it as an adventure to be like, you know what, if I fail, maybe, but then that might lead me down to something else. So I
Mhm.
think when I make it into something that's not scary, kind of like a do it for the plot type of mentality, then things become a lot more manageable. Because if I can regulate my emotions and how I feel about something, the more likely I'm going to be able to plan practically so I can take things step by step to
Mhm.
get there. Because I think a lot of times when we see these challenges, we have all these things that are on our minds that we're worried about. Like, what if this happens? What if that happens? I'm not sure where to start. And when you're in that stage, it's very hard to actually move forward. So a
Mhm.
lot of it's like, you know what is the big deal? What's the worst that can happen? Even if it does happen, like there's something else might open up. We just don't know. So in a way, it's a little bit of like letting go of some of that control that we, think we have, but we actually don't, right? And
Yeah.
just kind of doing that next thing and just see where that takes us.
Yeah. That very next step. What do you need to do?
Mhm.
What stood out for me as you were talking about that is about reframing into an adventure. And I would hope that most of us have experienced some adventure that really excited us. And therefore, if we could go back to that adventure,
Mhm.
and I know this is in a split second, but I think it would help to develop the trust in our ability and our ability to learn and grow during those adventures. Okay.
Mhm.
And I often speak to women about that. Like, what you've done so far has brought you to this point. Um, Not that there's been failures, but there's been challenges. You've got through them. And what is the key thing that you have been able to realize for yourself? And I think it is trusting in ourselves, right?
Mhm.
We build
Yeah.
all these skills, and that will help. And I just love the idea of it, thinking about it as an adventure rather than, well, I've got to get to this goal.
Yeah.
Think
Yeah.
how are things going to be as I work towards that goal? So those
Yeah.
are great insights, and adaptability is such a vital skill, especially for women who are navigating, as I mentioned, the post-corporate ventures
Yeah.
are very important for them because they've been in a particular position, maybe high achiever, working towards the corporate goals.
Mhm.
So now she's adapting to work towards her own goals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of self-discovery in that, which is kind of exciting. Like, what new thing can you learn about yourself too? Yeah.
And you don't have to do it in the next week. That's why
Yeah, exactly. Like,
just take that next step. You don't have to do it all in a week after you leave
exactly,
corporate,
exactly.
right? One theme that really resonates with me, Jennifer, is how healing has played a role in your growth as a leader.
Yeah.
Can you share a bit about your healing journey and its impact on your leadership style?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a big proponent that everybody should have a therapist, a good therapist. Only because, a lot of times when we're trying to deal with these challenges ourselves, whether it be with ourselves or with other people in our workplace, it's very easy to get into an echo chamber, right? And I
Mhm.
think a lot of times growth comes from having access to different perspectives and different ways of looking at things.
Mhm.
And I think having a good therapist who can help you give you that kind of different perspective to be more objective is really helpful in expanding your mind to be like, oh, I never thought about it like that. I never, considered that. Right.
Mhm.
And I think that kind of healing is also important because we all have, childhood things, or things that shaped us into who we are today, and things that we've coping mechanisms that we've built up to compensate for those. And while some of those can help us be more functional, a lot of times they also contribute to how we might emotionally respond to people at work, or how we might see a challenge. And I think the more that we understand like what triggers us, how and why we respond to things a certain way, the better we are able to problem solve, right? If we're trying to get to a certain destination, a lot of that is actually problem solving challenges that come our way, and your ability to come up with a solution, come up with the next step. But you're only able to do that if you have what I would call like good, clean data, right? Good, clean data can come from, I'm responding this way, and that's not necessarily clean data, because it's not actually this is the problem. This is signifying that I have this other problem that I have to address. So it helps you get to the root of the issue faster, so you can make better decisions.
Yeah, I'm all for that. Like sometimes the surface that you address is just like putting a Band-Aid on it.
Yes.
You really do need to be able to go deeper and find out what the root cause is. And like you were saying, that takes a good therapist, or at least someone that you can bounce your feelings off of, or what your perceptions are, and for someone to say, is that true? Is that really what's going on?
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you're working with people, right? If you're having a conflict or trying to give feedback and they respond a certain way, having that experience yourself of knowing like we're all on a different point of our journey in self-growth and discovery can help you understand or know how to kind of approach that person in a way that's productive.
And just to go a little deeper on that, that's incredibly inspiring. How do vulnerability and self-awareness tie into leadership for women in particular, in your opinion?
So I think leadership a lot of times is a balance of motivating people to work well, more productive, but also we have to take into account that we're also all human. So there's a lot of human aspects to that, right? And I think when we're able as leaders to show that we're on a path to growth, discovery, accountability, all of that, you set a culture and a tone in your work for other people to do the same, right? It can be aspirational. People are seeing that you're doing the work on yourself and how that's positively impact how you work with others. They're going to be more likely to want to pursue that. And then you also encourage them to do that. So all of that kind of ties together so that work doesn't just become every day we just slave away, just trying to make a few bucks. But we spend so much time at work, right? It should ideally also be a place where we can feel safe and fulfilled, right? That's kind of one of the benefits of having a small team, is that it's a lot easier to do things like that.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, if you have a core team that that you trust in them as well, and you trust in yourself, that can be really impactful for helping you. Well, having a role model for making decisions, it's so helpful, right?
Yeah.
We all struggle.
And if somebody at work is, having is crashing out, or like, in their fields, which is very human, very normal, having leadership who can kind of help walk you through that process and be like, all right, you're going through this. How do we handle this in a professional way and also manage what you're going through, right? All of that. It's really hard to learn that on your own and learn on the spot. Your therapist isn't going to be with you at work. So if there's somebody there to kind of at least help guide you in the right direction, that can be life-changing in itself.
For sure. Yeah. Okay, so now to the controversial. I always love asking my guests to choose a controversial talking point, and it's the point about curiosity and laziness. So I'm going to set this up for you.
Yes.
I love your take on combining curiosity and what you call laziness as a secret to success.
Yeah.
Can you unpack that for us, please?
Absolutely. So let me start with the laziness part, because I think the curiosity part kind of goes after that. So when I think about laziness, I think about myself a lot, not in the sense of I don't want to shirk my responsibilities, but in the sense of when I'm doing work, a lot of times, especially when it's kind of mundane work that has to get done, I literally sit there, I'm like, I don't want to do this. And of course, then I want to procrastinate. So that's when my curiosity kicks in, saying like, all right, if I really hate this, I don't want to spend my time doing this. Is there a better way to do that? And that's where the curiosity comes in. Like, there's got to be a better way. Like, who wants to live their life like this? So that's when the internet comes in really handy, or AI, where it'd be like, all right, I have this thing that I don't like doing. How can I get it done faster and accurately so I can just get it over with? Or maybe in some instances, I don't have to do it at all, right? So that's where I say, like, I don't want to do that stuff, right? I do feel lazy, but I want to do the stuff I do enjoy, whether it's a, more challenging, more strategic thing at work, or, something I want to do around the house. I want to get my work done. So, but with that, you have to problem solve, right? But in order to problem solve effectively, you need to have enough curiosity to ask yourself, is there a better way? And then be able to go online, have the tenacity to go through and be like, all right, let me see what tools are out there. What do I have to learn? Even if it takes a little bit more investment up front, I know for my future self, my quality of life is going to be so much better.
Yeah.
So it's that combination.
Yeah. Could you give an example that you're comfortable like with how you scaled Shoot, like where maybe there was some automation that's not present in most startups, but you went for it because there were certain things you did not want to do or couldn't
Yeah,
do?
I can give a couple ones that are fairly basic. So for example, things like we used to do a lot of data analysis. I used to do a lot of data analysis on a daily basis, which is fine when it's important to do. But a lot of those things were very manual in the beginning. Like we would just download data, look at it. Simple things like having the right formulas, having the right things, or even getting our tech team to be like, hey, can you just build me this one table? And then from that, I can more easily extrapolate. So it's a combination of little things to do. It doesn't necessarily have to be a big change, right? To automate, like, hey, can you just have the system email me the report every morning? And so instead of having to filter and then download it, like that already saves you a little bit of time. So that's like easy fixes, right? Other things I would say that's probably more relevant right now in today's age is a lot of use of AI. So we encourage the use of AI not to replace people. I see it as more of an extension of myself to help me to be able to get some certain things that would take me longer to do done faster. So I primarily use it, for example, with writing, longer form process docs or emails. And I would say the most important thing with that is you have to be really good at communicating yourself first and to be articulate in order for AI to actually do what you want it to do. And I think a lot of times, especially younger people, when they're using AI, use it incorrectly in the sense that they're actually relying on it to do their job for them. And I think that's a faulty use of it because, again, AI is not 100% correct. And it takes away from you actually putting in the thought, which is also not great. But for example, if I'm writing a process doc and I have all the pieces, I just want to make sure I write in a way that's really cohesive, or like make sure I didn't miss anything. Being able to articulate really clear what I want to, and then having it spit out a formatted version saves me an hour's worth of time having to do it by hand. So that in itself is actually super helpful, right? Or if I'm putting together a spreadsheet, it's like, I think I want this. Can AI is there actually a quicker way to do that, right? Then I also learned something new. So in the future, I could probably do it myself. So it's a lot of things like integrating what we have in sort of technology now to make what we do every day a little better, a little faster, or not at all. Yeah.
So especially for a business like yours, and there are a lot of hats that you wear as an entrepreneur, and finding those hats that you can have AI help you with the stuff you don't want to do.
Yeah.
And that then frees up, because you're in a creative business, for you to think about your business in a creative way, think about your leadership in a creative way. So I think it enhances our work, but like you said, don't let it, I always say I'm still the editor. Like, I have someone beside me. I call her Allie. She's AI.
Yeah.
And I say, I'm thinking about this. Tell me more about what you think about this, right? I don't have to accept everything she says.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like someone else when I ask for an opinion. I don't have to. I'm not obligated to say, okay, that's it. I'll go with that, right?
Right.
I'll still polish it up myself.
A lot of times I see it as like a really amped up version of just like an internet search, because I would have searched for probably all the different sources. This just makes it quicker, right? And I always say AI is only as good as the prompter themselves. So if you don't put enough thought into it, you're not going to get a good result from it. So
that's right. Yeah. So Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing. Like that balance of curiosity, efficiency, such a refreshing perspective. And I'd like to say that that actually it drives excellence. It's not so
Mhm.
much about being lazy, but it's your I love your perception of laziness as an accelerator. And I think
Mhm.
some of the things that we've talked about with AI, it's accelerating us, right?
Yeah.
To do what we do best. So that's
Yes.
great. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. Everything from transforming your personal pivots into professional strengths and using healing and curiosity. I think that
Mhm.
was so special for accelerators or accelerating your leadership. This conversation has been enlightening and motivating. Is there anything else that you would like to add before I speak directly to our listeners today about what their next steps might be?
Um, I don't think so. I'm
Okay.
good. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to let our audience know that they can follow you, Jennifer. It's in the ticker at the bottom. And
Mhm.
at the same time, I'm going to put up, if I can find it. I think I'm going to leave it, but people know how to get a hold of me. So I'm going to leave that rather than clicking around.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But for our listeners, if you want to learn more about Jennifer and her work, be sure to check out her website. It's easy, shoot.com, or connect with Jennifer on LinkedIn, and the links are down below. Jennifer's also on other platforms, all at Shoot Photos. So that's
Mhm.
great. To all of you tuning in, please remember that adaptability, healing, and curiosity are not just buzzwords, okay? They're tools, and AI, they're tools that can transform your career and your life. If you've enjoyed today's episode and you got something special from it, please subscribe on YouTube and on the podcast. Leave a review. That's so important to the health and well-being of a channel. And share it with someone who needs to hear these empowering lessons from Jennifer and who would benefit from this important message for remastering life and work and creating the reality that she has dreamt for herself.
Yeah.
This video podcast is produced by Maestro Quality as part of the Executive Encore program and hosted by myself, Patricia Muir. Please subscribe to Executive Encore on YouTube, on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, for more insightful conversations and inspiration for transformation from my guests. Please add your comments on the channels to have your voice matter. Jennifer and I we will respond when you put a comment for sure. And please share it with other women in your network. I'd ask you to subscribe to the Sunday Encore newsletter today, okay, to read more about Jennifer, who will be featured in the weekly blog and the published newsletter this Sunday, June 29th. When you subscribe to the newsletter, you will also receive a VIP access to resources and offers from all our podcast guests that are available only to Executive Encore members and subscribers. So you can see up in the corner, there's a little code there that says subscribe Encore. Go there and subscribe now. And please visit the website and read my weekly blog, follow me on LinkedIn, and subscribe on YouTube. All links to access information about Jennifer and me will be in the show notes. So this is where your Executive Encore begins, wherever you are, 40, 50, 60, 70, okay? This
Mhm.
is where you start to live, work, and lead differently with a healthy mindset, self-trust, and curiosity. That comes from Jennifer. A little bit of laziness doesn't hurt either. Until next time, take care of yourself, do what's best for you, and don't jeopardize what you've built for yourself. Bye-bye.